Hey, Matty Bash. It is the 26th of May, 2019. And I had to jump on here real quick and show you a couple things that came to my attention here that are just pretty crazy, quite frankly. And I was showing you the last time this Indianapolis craziness, which, by the way, I was giving the population of downtown. There is a wiki page just for that. I showed it to you, 28,000, so on and so forth. I know that Indianapolis Metro is a lot bigger than that, but I digress. The Indiana War Memorial, in particular, the giant black obelisk, okay? I was just led to look at these things because these are literal markers. These are like Satan's thumbtacks in the map of the world. I mean, through the flesh, over millennia, he has, because of the lusts of men, namely for money and power, so on and so forth, these men have submitted themselves to Lucifer, to Satan, to the spirit of the darkness that wants your eternal soul to never know God. Its main purpose is to keep you from God and the saving grace, the knowledge of Jesus Christ. That is its number one mission. Keep the world from knowing God. And one of Satan's best lies ever was convincing the world that he doesn't exist. Because most of the world just goes about their business as if all this darkness and evil is just not there. As long as they have their daily comforts, they're fine with all this stuff. But the problem is it's closing in. And if you're not in Christ on that rock, you will be destroyed. It's just that simple. But what I was led to do was look at these obelisks, right? Because they just love their obelisks. And so I went to the maps. This is where I was led to go. And there's your Indianapolis obelisk right there. And so I drew a line. I drew a line to the Washington Monument because, of course, that is the largest obelisk in the world, if I'm not mistaken. The Washington Monument. Okay, these memorials. These are everywhere. This is what they do. They put up their memorials. So they decided to put up this 555-foot tall memorial with 4.6 meter thick walls at the base and 0.46 meter thick walls at the top. Why do you think that's the case? 46, 46, the 555. All these things are just their magic math, their spells, if you will. And they just do it and laugh at you while you continue to succumb to the will of Satan, the god of this world. I mean, I know I'm not the best at explaining this stuff, but so I drew that line from Indianapolis to the Washington Monument. Look at the properties of it to see how long it is. It's 492 miles. There are other figures we can look at, but we're going to stick with the 492, which is an interesting number. And then I was led to all the other obelisks that we know of on the East Coast, and there are many. If we go to New York City, we have an authentic, I mean, you have to understand what they went through to erect this thing here. To transport it to New York and erect this thing was a huge undertaking. And they didn't just do it because it was a nice gift from Egypt. It's because it's a marker. It is a symbol of Satan's dominion over the flesh. Okay, and this one just happens to be 23 meters tall. And if we continue up the East Coast, okay, we'll go to Clio in New York, and we'll just check that out because I need you to understand something about this particular line right here, this one right here that I'm going to show you. So we'll go to New York just to check this stuff out. All right, up the East Coast. Now remember, this whole span of East Coast is where America was born. This is the literal birthplace, okay? The colonies. And so we have this giant 23-meter Egyptian obelisk outside of the Met Museum in Central Park in New York, right? Then we continue further up the East Coast and we go to Bunker Hill. This is very interesting. Bunker Hill was the tallest obelisk in the United States until the Washington Monument. And the Bunker Hill Monument happens to be 221 feet tall, which again is a very interesting number. And it also has a very nice Masonic temple at the base of it. Okay, are you getting the message here? And what I wanted to show you is if we go from this Bunker Hill, this is crazy to me, but this is just the kind of things that are revealed to me. We go from Bunker Hill and we go back down to the Washington Monument, but along the way, we cross directly over New York City. And I want you to see how this line intersects New York City. I mean, flat out just cuts it in half, right? And look at how Trump Tower is situated to this line. And you wouldn't believe it if I told you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I measured how long Trump Tower is from this line, and it's pretty insane, you guys. This line right here, and I got it as exact as I possibly could. Exact as I could, you guys, seriously. 0.13 miles, now get a load of this, 222 yards, and you guessed it, 666 feet. Trump Tower from this line that dissects from the Bunker Hill obelisk all the way to the Washington Monument. We'll continue down to the Washington Monument. Okay. And this line that goes from Bunker Hill to the Washington Monument is 396 miles. Now, anyone can check this, but what really freaked me out, right, is we have this 492-mile line, exactly, obelisk to obelisk. We have this 396-mile line from obelisk to obelisk. Well, get a load of this. 396 from Boston to D.C. From D.C. to Indianapolis, the obelisks is 492 miles. Exactly. Watch this. I mean, how? I'll tell you how. Because it's the spirit of Satan. No man can plan this out. This is all driven by a spirit. And I didn't end it there. I got to show you one more thing that I had to do. I went from the Indianapolis Monument, the obelisk, to the Bunker Hill obelisk. And I drew out that line, and I got to show you this. This is just crazy. That would be this line right here. And incidentally, if you put a compass on this angle right here, you're going to find that amazingly close to 33 degrees. Now we'll go to Indiana, to the obelisk, that line right there. And now we make a connection between them all. Okay, now remember, that's this line right here. Right? Now look at the properties of this. And remember, the 888 miles, well, 808 miles. It won't show the increments, but it's like 807 point, whatever. I mean, you can't get away from this stuff, you guys. So 888 miles. I'm just telling you that these things are not by accident. They never, ever are. The fact that this line runs entirely up the East Coast, the birthplace of America, Boston, to New York, through Philadelphia. I mean, it dissects Manhattan perfectly. All the things associated with this, it's just insanity to me. But there it is, man. And these two lines right here add up to 888. My goodness, that's just beyond to me, that's all. So I share it with you guys, and I pray you know Jesus, because it gives you an understanding of what you're looking at and who the enemy really is. And you no longer fear it because you got the power of Christ in you. The devil flees from that name. Remember that. Call on his name if you haven't already. And peace and grace to y'all. Many fish.
Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord, and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God,